Hey Reddit, what is the best instance of someone underestimating you? Story 1. Playing Trivial Pursuit at Christmas with my ex-girlfriend's family, most of whom are teachers, with a couple of college professors thrown in. They look down on me because I work in a manual labor job. I won and then drank all the Baileys. Story 2. A great internship was posted on my law school job board. I applied, did all the right steps, etc. But I didn't even get an interview. 6 months later, a similar offer was posted. I applied again. This time, someone from my school's career office called me and said, "We can't send someone with their credentials to that prestigious employer because this is a really important relationship for the school." I applied on my own, got an interview, and got the position. When the school found out, they wanted to set up a meeting to make sure expectations are set correctly. I politely told them to pound sand. Now I have a full-time job with the company. Story 3. Internships posted by my school were always highly competitive and filtered by the coordinator, so unless you were an upper year student or her favorite, you could expect to get a terrible job or nothing at all. I went out on my own and found an amazing, highly paid internship. I interviewed and was offered the job on the spot. There was only one catch. They had made a mistake in the job ad. I was trying to find a 4-month summer internship, but the ad had said 16 weeks. What they were actually looking for was someone for 16 months. So I considered it and decided that the opportunity was just too good. Even if I had to take a year off school and reapply back into the second year, which would be a piece of cake, the job experience and money would be worth delaying the rest of my education by a year. So I talked to my internship counselor and explained that if they didn't count it as credit towards the program, my intention was to take a year off of school and complete the internship regardless. She didn't agree with this. Instead of asking to meet with my employer so she could do reviews or try to help me negotiate a 4-month term, she went behind my back, called my employer, and told them that I wasn't allowed to take the job, that she would find a better upper year student for the job instead. It was like she was my mother or something. I had already signed the paperwork and was starting the next week. Luckily, my new boss told her to F off, and somehow I was still able to use the internship as all 4 work terms in one go, and take my remaining terms at school with no breaks for work. I was even able to graduate with my intake class. Sometimes you just have to do what you know is best. Story 4. I'd been working as a data entry clerk at night in a medical practice. The business manager found out that I knew bookkeeping. She assigned me to balance the checkbooks. None had been balanced since she first started there. I thought the doctors were fools, but I balanced them and gave them back to her. Then she threatened to fire me if I ever mentioned to anyone how long the books had not been balanced. Wrong. I was a temp, and at the best of times, I didn't care if I left the job or not. I spent the rest of my shift typing up a complete report on everything that I knew was wrong in the practice, from handling patient appointments to posting payments. I think it was over 5 pages long. I made copies of my report and dropped them into doctors' mailboxes at the hospitals that they covered. That way, she would not know that I had stuck a knife in her. I offered the doctors 3 options. I disappear and they forget the whole thing. I hire them a business manager on commission and leave. Or I take over and straighten the place out, and when it ran right, I would leave. I had given them my name and my number. Then I went home and started sorting what stayed and what went with me. I didn't even bother to call in for the next shift or the one after that. Then I got a call from the head of the practice asking for a meeting. I met with all 5 to 7 doctors. I offered to stick around until they could hire a real business manager. The next day, I was the manager and she was unemployed. No one threatens me. I hated the job, but I did it just out of sheer spite. Story 5. I got engaged at 17, married 3 weeks after I turned 18. The entire family went ape crazy. My father told me I'd be living in a hole, never leave my little hometown, never make anything of myself, never go to college. My own grandmother poked my now husband in the chest and told us to our faces that our marriage wouldn't last 6 months. I did go to college. I got an associate's degree, got out of that hometown, bought a house, got a bachelor's degree while working full-time, sold that house, built a bigger house, and we've been happily married for 13 years now, longer than my parents' marriage lasted. And every single time we celebrate another anniversary, it is the greatest screw you to my entire family inside my head. Never tell a girl they can't do something. Story 6. This always makes me smile. When I was in high school, just about to graduate, we all had to go see the careers advisor at school. For a little background story, it's important to know that I am physically disabled, but not mentally impaired in any way. Anyway, when I went to see her, she told me that perhaps I shouldn't aim for university as it was going to be a challenge with my quote-unquote educational deficits. I asked her what she meant and she said, quote, "Well, your disability, of course." I very politely explained that my disability has no impact on mental cognition at all, and she said, I don't think you're right. I think you need to consider the fact that you'll never work or live a normal life. These days, I'm at university studying to be a social worker, and yes, I know it's not something incredibly academic, but I did make it to university. Screw that ignorant careers advisor. Story 7. My girlfriend's dad was helping me tune up my truck. He's a real domineering type of guy and likes to be bossy, so I was just letting him educate me on vehicle maintenance. Towards the end, I was sitting in the truck while he plugged the wires back up. He wanted me to turn it over, and nothing. He tried again, and I turned the key, nothing. At this point, I hopped out and without a word plugged the wires correctly into the cap and started my truck, no problem. To this day, I'm the only one he doesn't try to educate and boss around. Story 8. In high school, I hated gym. I almost failed and didn't graduate because of it. I was a dancer, a serious ballet student. I was in the studio 5 days a week and worked out at home 4 days per week. And in my junior year, 1989, I had to take the stupid presidential fitness exam. Fine, I did the stupid thing. The PE teacher said if I could at least not come in last, she would pass me. I wasn't a great runner, I knew that. However, I came in above almost every single student in my class for leg presses, aerobic tests, sit-ups, and overall fitness. 2 guys beat me, and I was a top female. The coach insisted I cheated. I had to do the test over again. The very next day after school, it was just us. I beat all my own scores out of sheer rage, and when it was over, I tried to again explain that just because I saw no merit in dodgeball didn't mean I wasn't fit. I could do stuff with my body all those jocks couldn't dream of. I still hold the record for most sit-ups in a minute and leg presses for women. Screw jocks. Story 9. A guy made my life hell for years. He'd convinced me that if I left him, I would lose the kids and he would kill me. He had all the money and all the power. He regularly told me that I was worthless and ugly. The phrase, piece of tool, still sends me into a panic attack if I hear it. He thought he was going to own me forever and that I would never make it on my own. I heard that every day. I'd be nothing without him, I'd be homeless, and I couldn't do anything without him. Screw that. I'm making it on my own. It's a struggle sometimes, and I had to ask for help in the beginning, but I'm happy and safe. More importantly, the kids are happy and safe. We don't have a lot, but we're okay. It's been several years, and I have to say that I've really had a lot of help getting to where I am now. The town helped to pay the electric bill, friends sent money and gift cards, unsolicited and with the knowledge that it would be a while before I could ever repay it. And people just reminded me that I really can do this on my own. They believed in me, which I hadn't done in years. It's hard to ask for help, especially when you've had it beaten into you that asking for help makes you weak, pathetic, and worthless. If you're where I was, just do it anyway. If you know someone who is where I was, please don't ignore it. Feeling alone is what made it hardest to get out. It's terrifying to jump out into the world completely alone, taking your kids along with you, not knowing what will happen next. Story 10. People have been underestimating me my whole life. My parents were both in the beauty business. I worked with them, helping them to run the largest beauty school in Oklahoma for 19 years. Since I was a man in the beauty business, everybody thought I was gay. I was a Marine from 1966 to 1972 during the Vietnam War. The war was very unpopular, and since I was a Marine, everybody thought I was a soulless baby. I was a professional musician for many years. Of course, everybody knows musicians are a bunch of drunks and dope addicts. In truth, I am not gay, I am not a drunk or a dope addict, and I have never killed babies or innocent civilians. The point is that nobody knows enough about you to make judgments except yourself. All your life, people are going to assume they know enough about you to make judgments. They're wrong. However, that won't stop them from doing it. Story 11. I'm 5'2" and weigh 110 pounds. In high school, I was on the drum line. I played bass first, then snare, then tenors. I decided to try out for Carolina Crown on tenors. Guys kept making comments like, she won't be able to keep up. She probably can't even play. I was the second best player trying out on tenors. While they were all complaining about not being able to do stuff, I was just beasting it out and not saying a word. I'm small, but not physically challenged. What the hell does being small have to do with playing? Story 12. I'm currently looking for jobs in the craft beer industry in the Bay Area. People in the industry never treat me seriously because I'm a 5'6" beardless Asian who only needs to shave once every 2 weeks. According to them, only hip guys with long beards and tattoos can be beer experts, and I obviously look like an 18-year-old high schooler who has absolutely no beer knowledge at all. Now, I've read most of the brewing science textbooks. Heck, I even bought college microbiology and chemistry textbooks to read in my spare time to educate myself. I passed tasting and other qualification exams, and I'm doing an internship in a brewery to gain experience. I just want the white folks to know that, hey, Henry Spam right here really knows his stuff. Maybe next time when you hire a sales rep, consider the beardless Asian guy. Story 13. So, some background first. I worked at my family's restaurant, and to avoid special treatment, I would go by a different last name so nobody would know that I'm the owner's son. Fast forward about a year, and we hired a guy named Colin because that's his name. Colin was a major dude who would try to unload his responsibilities on me, and one day I just told him that I'm not doing his job. So, what does he do? He puts me into a sleeper hold and only lets go a second before the lights go out. As soon as he let go, I told him I was the owner's son and that he shouldn't bother coming into work tomorrow. He came to work the next day and we locked him out. He was fired. Story 14. I'm pretty laid back and wear business casual clothes to work, i.e. nice dresses, flat shoes, but no suits, perhaps heels now and then. I introduced myself to a new employee in a department that works right next to mine. I realized his attitude was a bit condescending as we talked, and as I started to walk away, he asked, "Are you one of the work-study students?" I smiled and realized he thought I was a student worker, and that explained his attitude. I just laughed and said, "Nope, I'm Dr. Damsel, but it's great that you think I look young enough to be an undergrad." Story 15. When I was 15, I was playing golf with my friend on a par 3, waiting for two guys to finish putting when two dudes came up behind us and told us to go tee off. The rules of golf state that if there's another group on a par 3, you can't hit until they're finished, yet these guys told me that I wouldn't be able to hit it that far anyway. So my friend and I waited until the group ahead finished before we teed off. I went first, took a few practice swings, they told me to hurry up, and then I slam dunked it straight into the hole. The look on their faces? Priceless. Story 16. On holiday in Croatia, a drunk local accused me of staring at his girlfriend, which I totally was, and he thought he'd be a tough guy. He threw a punch, I blocked it and hit him in the side of the head, and he went all wobbly and fell into a hedge. Within 15 seconds, I had run off and disappeared into a crowd. Now, I'm pretty skinny, but I was studying Krav Maga at the time, and the whole thing happened before I really registered what was going on. I ran off because Croatia seems like the sort of place where the police are going to trust the drunk local over the sober tourist. I hope the guy was okay. Story 17. Happens to me all the time. I hated school, was a very average student, but loved university and learning and found stuff I was quite good at. I became a CEO in my early 30s. I deal a lot with other big businesses and know most of my state's politicians, their staff, major corporation CEOs, and senior management from a whole range of organizations. But really, I'm just a regular guy. I like cycling, running, shopping, wine, food. I wear jeans. I go for dinner, no different from any other 30-something. My wife is a couple of years younger than me, but looks about 20, still gets refused alcohol in some places. And as such, when we are out, people rarely suspect that I'm so well connected. I'm certainly no freak, but I've used my influence to have people fired or reprimanded. All in all, though, I try to use my power for good. I have insisted on people getting pay raises or more senior positions. I never say, "Do you know who I am?" or big myself up, but it is sure satisfying to have some kind of influence. Recently, I dealt with a waiter in a major venue. Great girl, very professional, but stuck in a crap job. Turns out we had a major function coming up, I think 400 people conference. I insisted she be put in charge of the conference and my staff worked with her to sort all the details. Long story short, it was a huge success, and she's now the manager of the entire functions component of their business. Story 18. After a back injury that saw me in the hospital for 3 weeks and needing to learn to walk again, my now ex-girlfriend told me to just give up grappling, that I shouldn't do it anymore at all ever. I put on a heap of weight, got out to 150 kilograms-ish, and was basically miserable as hell. She ended up leaving me over my determination to get back on the mat. Nearly a year of painful rehab later, I won 2 super heavyweight state championships in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, plus took second and third in the open divisions. 14-2 for the weekend. I received my blue belt a week later from my coach and friend Thiago Stefanati, who stood by me throughout the whole thing. I'm now walking around at 95 kilograms and getting ready for a major tournament on September 21st. Never give up, ever. And more importantly, surround yourself with people who will help you achieve your goals instead of burying you with their negativity. Story 19. I was having a cigarette outside a bar one time after the ugly lights came on when a random guy approached me, obviously looking for a fight. Now, where I'm from, people usually hang out in the parking lot for an hour or so after the bar closes to watch 1 or 2 fights, and I knew that by being there, I ran the risk too. But I was with some pretty big guys, so I wasn't too worried. Quick backstory: I'd been a skinny boxer for about 10 years at this point, standing at 5'10" and weighing 160 pounds. Now I'm much bigger, but that's besides the point. So I'm leaning on this truck, having my cigarette, and this tallish guy walks up to me and says, "You want to go?" I asked him, "Why?" I don't remember much of the words exchanged after that because my eyes went a little red, but he put his hands up and I grabbed his wrists and held them down. I remember him saying, "Let go of my hands." So I did, unclenched his wrists and hit him with a 5-punch combo before he hit the ground. He was falling after the third punch. Bouncers and police came in. The bouncer came up to me and said he saw everything and he would testify for me if I pressed charges. I said no and walked over to Tim Hortons, pretty common at 3 a.m. for the drunk people, eh? Guess who showed up? The tough guy, bleeding and disoriented. He came up to me and apologized, and I said, "Why'd you try to fight me?" He said it was because he wanted to fight and I looked small. He also said, "Damn, you were fast." I said, "Screw you. Round 2, anytime I see that stupid stuff again." I was puffy-chested by that point, so I wasn't looking for an apology. Never saw him again, though. Story 20. I used to wear a messed-up uniform in high school with tattoos, baggy jeans, oversized white tees, heavily influenced by hip-hop and urban culture. I never spoke up in class. It was the beginning of the first quarter when a new English teacher assigned us to read The Myth of Daedalus and Icarus. As our teacher was about to start the discussion, a classmate asked me if I had a pencil. I said yes and handed him the pencil. Immediately assuming that I was chatting, she singled me out and said, "Now, class, this is what happens to slackers. Mr. Shameful Secrets, can you tell us what Daedalus and Icarus is about?" I couldn't believe this young teacher, she was in her 20s, was calling me a slacker like the principal in Back to the Future. He probably assumed that the tattooed, thuggish-looking Latino kid in the back of the room was going to clam up or make a wise-ass remark that she could then use to make an example. What she didn't anticipate was that I was and continue to be a voracious reader. For the next 15 minutes, I held court over my class, essentially retelling the entire myth in great detail, cross-referencing other myths and various relevant points about the setting, characters, and themes. After class, she asked me to stay and apologize to me. I wasn't expecting that, but she turned out to be a great teacher. We had a great relationship after that based on mutual respect. I later went on to be a literature major, and the moral of the story? Nerds come in all shapes and sizes. Never mess with a nerd, for he or she has an exhaustive, encyclopedic, completist knowledge of stuff you'd never expect, and they will make you look stupid. Story 21. A few years ago, I was sitting in my car talking to my friend on the phone, trying to figure out when he was going to meet me at the bar. Suddenly, while I was still talking to him, I looked in my outside mirror and saw 3 young guys about 5 cars back smacking car mirrors. I guess they were hitting them to see if they would move back and forth. I was driving an MR2 at the time, which sits really low, so you couldn't tell I was in the car. So I saw these guys walking up to each car, smacking the mirrors until, sure enough, boom, they hit my mirror super hard, making it go the other way. Pissed off, I got out of my car and confronted these 3 guys. One guy actually tried to pass it off as an accident, to which I said, "Bull, I've been sitting in my car watching you." One guy had actually started to walk away from the group because he didn't want the confrontation and told me it's not worth it. And that's when one of them finally said, "Hey man, there's 3 of us and 1 of you." I was wearing a big leather coat, so he really couldn't see my build. Now, I'm no Hulk Hogan, but what I am is a 6-foot, 225-pound bodybuilder with not a whole lot of fat and 10 years of defensive fighting training, including handgun, knife, and weapon retention and disarming, and I was not scared of 3 college, 160-pound drunk punks. So when he said that, I just said, "Oh my God, are you kidding me?" and took off my jacket. You could see it in all their faces. They made a big mistake saying that. So I told the guy who said it, "Okay, now I'm going to beat the hell out of you first while your friends watch." The guy who really didn't want to fight ran back up to his friends and apologized for what they did and what the guy said. I said, "That's good enough," and they all hustled off. Story 22. I was at a conference when I was about 24, 25. As I was waiting near the front of the room, I was approached by a guy I had never met who said something like, "Son, let me give you some free advice. You want to be successful in this industry, pay attention to the next presenter." And I was the next presenter.